Zet Zillions wears its influence on its sleeves so prominently and confidently you may as well call it Slay the Spire. And that's hardly a new story in the indie game scene. When an indie becomes so successful as to help mainstream a previously niche genre, other prospective developers are going to take notice. But one thing I find so impressive about these games is that despite the sheer number of deck-building roguelikes released since Slay the Spire took the genre crown, many of them have done so bringing an enormous number of new creative ideas to the table, by taking a pre-existing formula and twisting it into knots until a totally different game falls out. And I know, because I play a lot of them. Slay the Spire made me obsessed, and games like Balatro, Dicey Dungeons, Wild Frost, Inscription, fights in tight spaces, and Monster Train only kept me glued to the genre in the rare moments where I had outslayed my Spire a bit much, which sounds like a sex thing, but is not. Yet all of these arguably modern classics in the genre had one thing in common. None of them were as good as Slay the Spire. Some got really damn close, but not a single other deck builder had the sheer variety, addictiveness, balance, and clever game design that Slay the Spire does. But I'm not here to gush about Slay the Spire. I'm here to tell you that despite numerous blatantly obvious similarities to the game I'm not naming yet again, that even if it's not here to take the throne, dismissing Zet Zillions just because you've played a game like it would be a huge mistake, because this is both a game with a hefty number of really interesting ideas implemented really well, and one of the weirdest fucking games I have ever played. Speaking of weird, wouldn't you feel a little weird if you never once enjoyed the glory of indie warriordom by checking out our Patreon? Membership gets you great perks like an exclusive podcast, Discord server access, and even free games depending on your membership tier. Your community awaits. But let's not wait any longer to dive into the details of Zet Zillions, and I see no better place to start than its absolutely insane story. The game's Steam page describes it as a story-driven roguelike deck builder, and I could see that based on the clear existence of a story here, but if I'm being honest, at no point did I truly have any idea what was going on, and I'm not sure I was supposed to.
Love and compassion throughout the cosmos, nurturing everlasting relationships with our interstellar neighbors.
The game opens with a Helldivers-esque futuristic propaganda video talking about the forces of Earth branching out into the universe to find a new home for humanity, while espousing the glory of spreading love and compassion throughout the cosmos, and in the same breath saying, "May our enemies choke on the blood of their ripped-out throats." Gotta love imperialism, am I right? The game itself takes place alongside your planet ship, which I'm gonna assume is a planet that is also a ship, called Baby Violence, and being led by our main characters Foam Gun, Ziggy, and Doc, all of whom look like the zany bastard children of Beautiful Joe and Ren and Stimpy, I guess. In lieu of imagining what that threesome would look like, let's just point out that the look and feel of Zet Zillions is incredibly strange, but in a way that kind of lands.
It'll learn as we go! Get the commander's ass up to the bridge! Let's go!
Yes, I had no idea what was going on at any point. No, I wasn't invested in the story at all, but at the same time I was kinda into the whole vibe, even as its characters shout incomprehensible jargon at you as if you're supposed to know what an astral cloud or phantom data is, or why you as the player character are called Commander Trash. There's something so endearingly confident about its absurdity. As you pilot Baby Violence through the cosmos, you'll encounter a variety of crazy enemy designs and even entire planets you can choose to colonize or destroy, which is less a binary dialogue choice as it would be in some games, and more of an entire game mechanic. Being as your ship is technically also a planet, it just happens to be populated by people, who in this game are called trash. And hey, in general, they're not wrong. Trash cards, by extension, make up part of your deck, which will be randomly drawn from at the start of each turn in battle. Each card has an energy cost, and you have a limited amount of energy per turn before it's time for your enemies to attack or defend accordingly. If you've played a deck builder before, you more than likely know the gist. There are a number of different types of cards, but the aforementioned trash cards are some of the most interesting. Depending on the card itself, it can either do damage to your enemies, allow you to shield yourself against their attacks, or populate them. This population mechanic is one of several things that makes Zet Zillions stand out from other deck builders. Each enemy can be populated to some degree, and many cards in your deck will play off just how populated they are. Reaching an enemy's population cap will stun them for a turn, canceling any moves they were intending on using, and giving you some much needed breathing room to attack. Some cards cards will even scale their damage based on how populated your enemy is. On the other hand, some may actively kill off that population you've just spent so much effort launching at them, with the trade-off being that you'll do some hefty damage in the process. That, however, assumes you even want to damage your enemy, as you'll occasionally come across a living, breathing planet who you'd get a better reward from if you populate them rather than destroy them. These challenges add some welcome variety, as rather than trying to do as much damage as possible, you'll be aiming for as little as possible while you try to reach their population cap and be the good little colonizers you were trained to be. There are a number of other interesting deviations from the traditional deck builder formulas that are worth noting here. The overworld astral map is not quite one of them. It's basically the exact same node-based traversal between battles and events that any fans of this genre have come to expect, with the exception that you can move in any direction, not just forward. But an actual difference from its genre brethren is that you're strongly encouraged to keep your deck slim and free of junk, because all of the cards you draw stay in your hand until you play them, rather than being discarded at the end of a turn. This could sound easier, as there were plenty of times in Slay the Spire I wished I could keep a card in my hand for the next turn and didn't have the ability to do so. But in Zet Zillions, discard opportunities are few and far between, so having a card in your hand you can't properly make use of is going to be a frustrating waste of space before long. This continuity between turns extends to armor as well, which also doesn't disappear until you're actually attacked. But Zet Zillions' fusion system is one way you can sometimes make use of cards you otherwise can't. Certain cards in Zet Zillions can be fused together, making either a more powerful version of one of the cards or something totally different entirely. I did find the fusion possibilities pretty limited until you substantially expand your deck, but some later game fusions became invaluable for being able to MacGyver up a winning strategy when my hand seemingly didn't contain one. Some other design choices in Zet Zillions are surprisingly elegant as well. Rather than having one-time use consumables like potions, Zet Zillions makes these cards go into your deck, but ultimately get pulverized or permanently removed once they're used. Again, this incentivizes constant use of the resources at your disposal, lest they sit in your hand uselessly waiting for their time to shine. I should also mention there is some interesting meta progression here in the form of leveling up to gain starting companions that give you some sort of buff or special card, and unlocking interesting deck variations like the Chaos Arsenal card that fills your hand with 7 random cards before removing itself from play. Winning each individual battle will give you either a fresh new card to choose from, or occasionally a batch of pineapples, which act as the game's currency in sort of a LOL so random kind of way. Zet Zillions is full of style, but the humor is a lot more miss than hit, at least in my opinion.
You gotta be kidding me! Where's our ammo?
We've only got these synthetic life forms and some junk.
Guess that'll have to do. At least we'll be able to damage some armor with this trash. Blast away, Commander!
It's just sort of spastic and crass, less making actual jokes and more just referencing poop once in a while or making you fight space poop. Okay, I did smile a little bit at the space poop fight. I'm not as much of an adult as I even pretend to be. I'm a really big fan of the game's presentation though, juvenile humor aside. It's colorful and charmingly animated with some really unique enemy designs and a visual variety that just kept on giving. The music is also really good, even though it was sort of weird when battles go on long enough that the soundtrack just ends and takes a little while to loop back in at times. That said, while I hate to be the bearer of bad news, I would not currently recommend Zet Zillions to anybody looking to exclusively play it on the Steam Deck. At the moment, the game is designed to be played with a keyboard and mouse with limited and clunky controller support. While I initially thought the game ran great on the deck with no noticeable frame drops and easy enough play using the right trackpad and triggers as a mouse, a number of bizarre, sometimes game-breaking issues frequently reared their ugly head. Navigating the astral map was extremely buggy on Steam Deck, with control inputs sometimes not being recognized and the occasional development debug prompt coming up and indicating an error that needed to be clicked out of. One event in particular that requires you to click on something multiple times was completely bugged too, only allowing the first couple clicks and then being totally unresponsive thereafter. It's a bummer to me because this game is perfect for the Steam Deck, but while I would call it playable if you really want to make it work, the overall experience is materially compromised on deck at the moment, and I really hope they fix that. While the experience on PC is much better, it has its own bizarre issue, which is being unable to select any resolution other than 1920 by 1080, which is not something that should be said of any game in 2024. This isn't the type of game you need to play at 8K 240 FPS, granted, but there's no reason we shouldn't be able to get some sharper image quality here. Small bits of needed polish aside though, the experience of playing Zet Zillions on a proper PC with a mouse and keyboard is a consistently great one. I can't believe such a creative and interesting deck builder is releasing for only $10 too, because there's a lot of content here, and it can easily go toe-to-toe with many of the best Slay the Spire likes I've played. Again, it's not turning the genre on its head, and its crass sense of humor may be a turnoff to some, but I had a great time playing Zet Zillions and look forward to playing more of it, hopefully with some proper Steam Deck and Steam Cloud support, and better resolution options if I can cross my fingers for that. But it's still a great game as is, and anybody with an interest in deck builders should definitely be giving it a look. Zet Zillions gets itself a very well-earned Silver Genie Lamp of approval.